Buongiorno, inizio parlando in italiano, ma vi sto ingannando perché adesso passo subito all'inglese, dato che abbiamo ospiti internazionali qui con noi. So, good morning everybody. Welcome to the 10th edition of Trieste Next, the Festival of Scientific Research. We are here to talk about women innovators, with some women innovators with us today. So, we shall start from Giada Palma's book, 20 Women for Innovation. This book includes the narrative of a lot of women who made a kind of change with their actions into the scientific field. So, we will have Maria-Pau Ginebra, winner of the EU Prize for Women Innovators, as well as Ozgë Akbulut, who could not be here today with us physically, but is here virtually, so I think it will be great nonetheless. Hello, nice to meet you. So, we shall start from the book, and I would like to ask Giada Palma to explain to us how she came to the idea of the book, how did she choose which women to include in it, and what was just the idea behind it?
Thank you for the question. So, good morning, everyone. I see a full room of young people, mainly girls, but some boys and young men over there. I appreciate you being here, you know.
We all do.
Yeah. So last year, this project was born almost by chance, let's say, because if you remember, we were in the pandemic, the COVID was hitting strong during summer as well, and so I couldn't go vacationing in Greece where I wanted to go. I had plenty of time, so I was going around websites and looking for things, and I basically stumbled upon the prize that the European Commission is giving to these brilliant researchers and innovators, entrepreneurs, who have in common the fact that they are European in a broad sense, let's say, because Ozgë, for example, is in Turkey, and we had a couple from Israel as well, and the fact that they are women. So the European Commission is giving this prize to women innovators in Europe, in a broad sense, let's say. And I was fascinated by those stories. If you go on the website and check it out, you find the profiles, what they're doing, what's their story, and the narrative behind it was so interesting for me that I decided to reach out and contact them and say, would you like to be interviewed? And would you like your story to be told? And I would like to talk about what you're working on right now. And the reply was so quick, and it was so enthusiastic, I would say, that I decided to work on it, and it expanded, and it became a book, little by little, with these 20 stories of great researchers around Europe. So
That is very good, thank you. And Professor Ginebra and Dr. Akbulut are also part of the book. So why did you choose to be a part of it? And did you like the idea? And Professor Ginebra, could you start by introducing your career and your personal history and what you do for a living right now?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I think it's a great idea to find ways to visualize and to promote the role of women in all the fields in our society, and especially in science and in entrepreneurship. So yeah, I was contacted by Giada by email. You know, nowadays we receive tons of emails. So at first I thought, okay, another email, I will read it later. And I didn't answer just fast, I must confess. But then when I was, well, look, this email was remained kind of stuck in my list, and when I read it more carefully, I realized that it was really a good idea. It was an invitation. It was quite easy for me to fulfill Giada's request, so it was just to have an online interview. And yeah, we had a nice conversation. And then, yeah, she sent me this book that's amazing, I must say. I was really impressed by the way she was able to catch the main, let's say, the core of the idea, at least from my side. I'm a university professor, and I am somehow an entrepreneur by accident also, because I'm in an engineering school. I work in material science, and I had been for a long time working in the design of biomaterials, materials to be used in the human body, and specifically materials for bone regeneration. So when a bone gets broken or there is a defect, there are different ways to repair it, and sometimes it is necessary to use a material. The common approach is to use material coming from animals, from cow's bone. They just process the bone of the cow and produce small particles, and these are implanted in our body. This has some drawbacks because, yeah, it can transmit some diseases, or of course you need to kill animals to produce the material. So there is an alternative to use synthetic materials. And there are already synthetic materials in the market, but they are a little different from what's actually our bone. And our idea was to try to find ways to produce calcium phosphate, which is the component of these particles, but using a method which is more similar as the way as our own bones produce this mineral. So we were exploring what we call biomimetic, because it's copying the nature, biomimetic routes of producing materials for bone replacement. So we got some good results, and you know, our day-to-day life in academia is to publish papers, and this is what gives us, let's say, the way to promote and to be recognized, so publishing. But when you work in an applied science, as in my case, we always had the idea of, okay, the real step forward would be not to stop in a publication, but to obtain a product that can be used in a patient. But this somehow is to go out of my comfort zone, because I don't know anything about companies. I don't know how to do marketing of a product. I don't know nothing about regulation. So I was a little hesitant, I must confess. So, but speaking with my team, there were 2 PhD students at the moment who were very familiar with the technology, because they had done their PhD. They were finishing their PhD on this topic, and they were really enthusiastic. So at the end, we said, okay, let's go, let's do it. And we started this company. It's called Mimetis, and the idea is to produce these biomimetic bone grafts. So to produce, these synthetic materials that can be used to replace, to restore bone instead of these animal-based products. So we started this adventure, and in our case, when you want to launch a product which is supposed to be used inside the human body, this is very challenging in terms of regulation, because it's understandable that there is a lot of tests that must be performed in order to ensure the safety of the product. So this is good on one side, but this is bad in the sense that you need a lot of money to survive until you really may have a real product. So it took us nearly 3 years to run all the tests, so in vivo, preclinical tests, animal tests, before going before having this product. So this was very intensive period, looking for money, trying to convince investors that the idea was really good, but they would have to wait for some years before getting return on their investment. So this is more or less the
No, that was very interesting. Thank you. I would just like to ask you like a leading question. So, creating a bone graft with a material similar to that of the human body and bones, what kind of advantages does it have for somebody who uses that kind of material?
Yeah. The idea here is not just, thank you, very, very relevant question. The idea is not just to have a material which is more similar to our bone because it sounds good. It is because there is a reason behind. Our bones are constantly remodeling. You know, the bone you have today is not the same that you had 5 years ago. We have constantly renewal of our bones. And this means that our cells, the cells in our bones, know how to dissolve our old bone and produce new bone. So our goal is to have a material that is recognized by our cells the same way they treat the native bone. So if we put in our bones a material which is very similar to the native bone, the bone cells will remodel it, will dissolve it and produce new bone in its place. So the idea is to have this material that enters the bone remodeling cycle and that is progressively replaced by new bone. So after some months, years in some cases, you will end up having new bone, the material will disappear, and you will have new bone instead. So this is the idea behind mimicking the morphology and the crystallinity and all the features of our bones.
Are there scientific fields, just out of curiosity, are there any other scientific fields and surgical fields where these kind of biomimetic materials are already in use?
Yeah. Yes. Actually, this biomimetism is a very attractive idea from a material science perspective, and it is nowadays explored for different, very varied applications. For instance, another example of biomimetism that is explored is something that I was just yesterday talking to Giada about. It's the design of antimicrobial surfaces. You know that there is a strong need of finding alternatives to antibiotics because antibiotics, we have the resistance to antibiotics. So, for instance, it is known that some insect wings, such as dragonflies or cicada, these wings have a surface which is antimicrobial, which kills the bacteria by contact. So it's the topography of the material that has this antimicrobial capacity. It's not a chemical, it's not any reaction, it's just by contact because there is a spiky surface and kills the bacteria. So this analogy serves, for instance, for the design of metallic implants for hip prosthesis or knee prosthesis or dental implants, which are intrinsically antimicrobial. So which are able to kill bacteria and avoid, for instance, the biofilm formation. So this is a different kind of application, but where inspiration in nature is also very useful.
The same idea at the basis, yes. And how did you get the idea? You graduated in physics, and then you work into the engineering field, but now you produce something for the medical field. So how did you get here, and how did you get the idea?
Yeah, actually, I studied physics. You're right, and I mean, I didn't know much about materials before. I studied physics because, well, I liked it. In high school, I liked maths and physics, so okay, I will study physics, but I think often when we enter the university, we don't know very well where we are going to finish. No, it's more or less intuition that this is an area that I like. But then when I finished, I had the opportunity to do my PhD in another university, in the Technical University of Catalonia, and I entered the material science department. And I started working in injectable materials for bone replacement already. Here the idea is to have materials that can be directly injected inside the body. So this was the entrance to the biomedical applications. And I found it really rewarding. I mean, to be able to work in something that sooner or later will have an application was something that attracted me a lot. So then I said, okay, if I would have known, perhaps I would have studied engineering instead of pure physics. But it's not a problem, because then you can always redirect your interests. And
of course, thank you. So I would like to turn to Dr. Akbulut to ask her what she does for a living. She's a material engineer as well, and she created the model of a female breast for doctors to train on, but I'm sure she will tell you more about it into details. So could you explain to us what's your innovation?
First of all, very nice being here. Being here, I wish that I were there, but it happens. And it's very great to listen another fellow material scientist. So I will be talking a little bit more on the materials as well. My expertise is in polymer engineering, polymer science, composite materials. And as you said, I am making breast models. And because 1 in 8 women experiences breast cancer in the world, and the return of these women to their pre-cancer lives depend on the success of the surgery that they are going to go through. If the woman is not happy with her body after the operation, they might forego the following treatments like radiotherapy and such. So what we are doing is we are creating breast models that provide realistic responses to surgical interventions. And these models are used by expert surgeons to teach the junior surgeons to perform better. So in a sense that we are trying to bring this general surgery and plastic surgery together such that the woman can go through a single-step operation. This is called oncoplasty, and these methods are called breast conserving methods, so that they damage the tissue as little as possible. But then the surgeons need to practice in order to do these kind of modern operations. So what we are doing is preparing this composite model, actually, out of silicone. This is a synthetic model, and like my breasts, they do not go into the body, so they are totally training materials. And why I am doing this, because also I am an academic. I am an associate professor at Sabanci University, and this is a spin-off from my laboratory, so my time is pretty much divided between academia and this entrepreneurship and the company stuff. And what I care is equal access to education. So what is out there in terms of training materials, right? So this year we have been through COVID, like all of us have been hit hard. And we care about the cost of the vaccines, cost of diagnosis and stuff, but then like the cost of medical education, it is still so high. So what we try to do is to design these affordable and accessible models and make it available to those who need. Like we even have a differentiating policy. The ones who can buy it, they buy it. If they can't buy it, we find a way to provide these models so that the surgeons all around the world can have equal access to education. So that is what I do in brief.
Thank you very much. So you create a model for doctors to train on.
Yes.
So would it be correct to say that the idea also came from the fact that not all doctors all around the world have access to that kind of equipment? And also, is it true that medicine is usually based upon the study of the male body? So maybe there's a lack of knowledge of the female body, or doctors need to train more because they have less knowledge in it. Is it true? And where did the idea come from?
Okay, so well, first of all, men also have breast cancer, but then it is not particularly the lack of study on the woman body when it comes to breast cancer. So, well, like we have to accept this, right? There is this in surgery and in medicine, most of the time we have this apprentice-master type of relationship. And the surgeons, they do practice on the very patients that they promise to take care of. So it is that problem that I would like to solve. So I don't want the surgeon to train on 50 women before she does something better. So we would like them to train on these models such that once they move to the woman body, the real woman body, then they have the necessary proficiency to go ahead with a better procedure. So what we were trying to do is to eliminate that learning period on the human body. And the idea came from a surgeon, actually, my co-founder. And he's a thoracic surgeon, and he was attending these oncoplasty workshops. But then the workshops are based on videos, drawings, and such. So they didn't have anything hands-on so that they can really practice. So that was the initial idea. He asked me if I could make breast models. And I do polymers. If you are going to do breasts, they are not going to be made out of metals or ceramics. So they are supposed to be from polymers. So I said yes. So that was initiating point of the idea, actually.
Thank you very much. And so, how do you actually try to provide maybe underdeveloped countries or doctors who do not have access to that equipment with your model? How do you plan? Are you already doing it, or are you planning to do it?
No, we are doing it actually. We have cuts for certain countries, for instance, for India, and I choose science because I believe that through science we are going to make this world better. So denying someone any kind of education or any kind of access to knowledge, we should basically get rid of that mentality. So if someone says that, look, we would like to train this many surgeons and like we need your models, we are just going to give them for free actually, and or finance it through sponsorship and stuff. So we have cost cuts already, and we are looking forward to developing the other kind of educational schemes. For instance, like most recently, due to COVID, we also pivoted our idea a little bit. So, like normally the surgeons come together and then they attend the workshops, they do a face-to-face education. Now things are changing in a way. The educational bodies, they are sending our breast models to the trainees at home, and the expert surgeon is doing the operation online, and then the trainees are watching it and they are practicing at the same time on the breast. So I think that is also a huge threshold that we already overcome in order to make these things more accessible, in order to make this education more accessible. So we are working through some business plans with our partners all around the world, actually.
And was it hard to get financing, or was the university very much involved?
The university is one of the investors, but actually, like, it's a very nice question. So my company, SurgeDate, is one of the first investments of ARIA Women's Investment Platform. So I am also a member of Turkey's first women investment platform, and we specifically invest in women-based businesses, like in the leadership position, and especially we are pursuing high-tech businesses in order to increase the presence of women in science and technology. So I would say no, it wasn't that hard because I was able to come together with women with the similar mindset, actually.
That's very interesting.
Also, I am looking for smart money. If it comes, I wouldn't say no. But then if I'm going to get investment, I would like to be in the same mindset with the investor, right? SurgeDate is a for-profit company, but I really care about this accessibility, so I'm not going to increase the prices in order to make more money and such. So having the similar mentality is critical.
Okay, thank you. And that brings me to my next question, which is kind of a broader question, because I was thinking that usually we think of research as something totally different from entrepreneurship, you know. Research is made for its own sake, at least for the way we've always considered it, but maybe it's not true. And so what did it mean to you both, Professor Ginebra and Dr. Akbulut, to be both researchers and entrepreneurs? Were the two things actually compatible, or did you find it hard to put them together?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it is. I agree that these are different worlds. I mean, they should be better connected, I think. It is sometimes hard to live in both worlds, at least for me, because as I said before, in the university, the parameters they use to evaluate you are based mostly in publications and not in the products that you put into the market. So one side is that the methodology of evaluation that we have, at least in our country, and I think that in most European countries it is more or less this way. And also it is difficult because the approach is totally different. I mean, in a company, you need, when you want to transform your research into a real product, you need to take into consideration many things that, when you are in a lab, are not important. For instance, in our case, one of the things was the lead time. So we need to produce things fast. It's not for a company. It's not worth to have a method that requires, I don't know, 7 days for the reaction to take place. They need to have products which are produced quickly, because otherwise it is not, it does not compensate the money that you put in. So there are new aspects that before were not an issue, and now when you want to transform this into a product, you need to consider. So it's a different approach. So you need to take into account all these other aspects. In my case, I still work at the university and in a company as in the case of Ozgë. I think it's the same. So we have two hats and we put on one or the other. But it's very challenging also. I mean, it's very rewarding to see that our research is useful and can be really help people. So when you see your product really reach the patient, for me it's actually much more a reward than having another paper published, of course.
Of course. Dr. Akbulut, would you like to comment on this?
Well, I second everything.
Do we have
okay. So yes, it is a huge challenge, and so far what I have learned is I learned to appreciate the marketing people. Like, when in the beginning of those stuff, I was always the scientist, and of course we are making the product, and it takes huge amount of investment in terms of mental and amount of lab hours and stuff. But then at the same time, like the moment that you get the product in your hand and seeing that it is useful for people, it is preventing diseases, it is making people happier, it's an amazingly rewarding point. And most of the time people ask me, in the panels, they ask me, I'm a faculty member, I would like to start a company, what do you advise? I tell them not to get into business unless it keeps them awake at night, right? Because academia is already very challenging. We have the entire pressure of publishing all the time, raising grants, mentoring students. This is already 150% job, and then on top of it, you are saying that okay, I'm going to translate the benchtop research into a product, and again, once things turn into products, then you have to sell them for the company to be able to survive. So. If a scientist is really getting into this business, and I am sure Professor Maria is also on the same page, you have this drive that you cannot stop anymore. So yes, it is hard, and then academia does not know yet how to evaluate us. So in a sense, if I am creating a product and per year if 500 surgeons are being trained on my products, how does it translate to impact, right? So for instance, we don't have this impact appreciation in academia other than publications and grants. But then the academia also has to translate this new knowledge into, like, we should be encouraged, more scientists should be encouraged into turning the benchtop research into a product. So academia needs to know this part, and I am really spearheading this motion in my university. I don't know how is it for you, but yes, we need that transformation in order for us to, like, for the scientists to bring out like better products. And most of the time, I really rely on my tribe. I love scientists because I think most of the time our hearts are in the right place to do good business.
So I take that scientific research and entrepreneurship are not, well, they are different, but they should be connected, because it's like a way to have, actually being an entrepreneur is a way to have an impact with one's research. So they should be linked even more in time. So on a lighter note, do you like being defined as innovators? Does it actually mean something to you? How would you define yourselves?
Yeah, I think as soon as you propose new ideas that can be transformed into reality, this is of course innovation. I think, as you said before, research and innovation must be together, because innovations come out from research, even basic research, research that may seem very far from translating into a product also is worth. I mean, I'm not saying that we only should do applied research. Basic research is also, well, it's fundamental. But I think that innovation and research are linked, but sometimes, at least in our system, we have. We normally say, or we like to say that universities are the kind of an islands of knowledge, or the fabrics of knowledge, but we need to build these bridges between universities, for instance, academia, and companies world. And the outer, and this is the way to make innovation more efficient, I think,
Of course. So, what I wanted to ask is a kind of a difficult question, maybe, but then you'll tell me. I read in the book that you have also a personal history, the both of you, with female examples to look upon, and a good education. So, could we say that in our world, unfortunately, not all people who may deserve to make it actually do make it, because of some preconditions that they did not choose, which are maybe genetics, the education they have access to, so also economic independence, their families, and all that kind of stuff. So would you say that played a role, which is not something bad to say? I think recognizing where one comes from and what privileges they did have is part of actually making a change, because just starting from that, can you then try to change things maybe for other people? So what do you think about that? And also, do you think that what you do can be of help, or is there a way to be of help to people who may have not the same access to this kind of success as you did? I would like to start from Dr. Akbulut.
Well, it's an excellent question, and again, like as I was saying, like us scientists, we have our hearts in the right place. So, and I know that we have limited amount of time in our lives, but then you have to decide where you are going to put your energy. And like 5-6 years back, I have decided to put my energy to promote the education for K-12 children, especially girls. So I am running these kind of projects in Turkey with connection to international realm as well. So yes, we cannot maybe save everyone, but I really care about equal access, and so like raising money for it, raising awareness on it, it takes time. But I think like when we were talking about, and especially since you are in Italy, we can talk about Renaissance more, right? And in the Renaissance times, like when you are defining a Renaissance, most of the time men, of course, like we are talking about people who can do arts, who can do literature, who can do science together. And I think in our times then, we have to be innovators, we have to be scientists, we have to be activists, and we have to raise our voice in order to serve to the underprivileged. And that really requires design of one's life. And so this is also something I said in the book. One should decide as early on how authentic you are going to be, where does your authenticity come from? And so once you have the power, then it comes with a responsibility in order to serve the society, I think. And yes, it takes time, but I really encourage everyone. And as you said, like I can't see the audience, but since they are already there, all of us has something to do, has some contribution, and I think that contribution has to be sought actively and then came into action. So that is all I can say, right? We have to do this, like in a sense. You are in Italy, I am in Turkey, and yes, I am coming from a privileged family, and in a sense, then it is my duty to make it accessible to everyone.
Of course, thank you. Professor
Yeah.
Ginebra?
Yeah, I agree with what has been said. I think at the beginning I didn't like that. Normally they use the idea of we need to have role models for young people to. I don't like to be considered a model, because a model, you think a model something perfect, and we are not perfect. I mean, we have, but when we speak about role model, I think it's more like to see other people that, with the imperfections, of course, have tried doing something and they have succeeded. And for instance, in my case, I was very fortunate because in my family, my mother, she's very old, she's 92 years old, but she was not a feminist, and she would hate if I say that she's a feminist, but she was a lawyer. She studied from, at that time when she was young, there were very small number of women at the university. She studied law, she worked, and she didn't speak to me about the need for women to be valuable and to work, but she did it, and this was a model for me. I didn't realize at the moment. It's later that I have realized that I had a role model without knowing it, and of course this gives you some self-confidence to see, okay, this is something normal. I can do it. And there's this role of having some reference and model also has happened very, very recently in Spain. I don't know if also here. In the news, there has been they have given space to women sports. This was something that before was completely ignored. For instance, women football was not on the news, never. In the last 2 years, I don't know why, I don't know what's the reason for this, but they have started speaking and giving news about teams that go to Europe. I know the Barca women team is on the news also, and this somehow has revolutionized the world of sports, of women's sports in Spain. You know that we love football as culture. I think here is also very popular, yes. And you find now a lot of girls that want to play football, and also the salaries of the players has increased. It's all a matter of visibility at the end. So this is somehow that confirms that it's important to have visibility, not in the sense of being models of something perfect, but to showing people that this is something normal, that we can do it, then we have to be self-confident, and that we merit to be in all the spaces of society.
And that can be, in a way, applied to your book as well, and to your writing of the book. Was that the idea? Did you want to give visibility to these kinds of women and to give some kind of context or examples or that?
Yes, yes, of course. I mean, I agree with you with the word, role model, which is misleading because somehow it creates detachment between you and something that is in the pedestal somehow, no? And that's why I didn't want to do the same book about Rita Levi-Montalcini, Margherita Hack, and the same too, you know? Because, okay, they're great, they're geniuses, but we're not all geniuses, we're normal people. We're passionate people with a dream, and we try to achieve it and work hard. I mean, I think most of you are students from STEM or faculties or maybe high school, people that like scientific fields. So you probably have a vision for your future. And when I thought about that, I was thinking, okay, who are the extraordinary, but at the same time normal people that we have around us and that can serve as an example, not in your family, because not all of us have a great mother who went to university and studied law in the 50s, right? We might have normal families with a mother that maybe doesn't even work. And the statistics for Italy are really bad, because if you check that out, we're right before Greece at the end of the list of least employed women in Europe, and especially when you start having kids, women disappear from work, or they go for flexible jobs and they work less, which means they don't get to the top of organizations at the end of the day, right? So now we start seeing more examples of women who get to the top and achieve certain positions. For example, we have the head of CNR now, we have the head of these big research centers, also at Ginebra. We start talking about female astronauts, we have Sabina Cristoforetti, and that's great. I mean, we need much more of that, and we need much more approachable examples of people who just achieve great results. They win prizes at the European level just by working and doing good every day their job and trying to have an impact on society in its entirety. So.
Thank you. And also, I was thinking that the very fact that there is an EU prize for women innovators is something to think about, I think, because you do not have a male prize, because you just have a prize and males often win the prize. So it's not like they need to have a prize for them, while women still do. Is it good to have a prize like that, but do we need to think about it? Or could that money or those energies be invested in something else? What do you think would be best? To all three of you, I ask.
Yeah, I think it's worth. I mean, the same way as I think that visibility is something that is, it pays off. I mean, it's because then other things will come out of this. So I think it's a good investment. Actually, I was surprised when Giada wrote me. He said, okay, this prize, I was not aware that could have an impact. And I am here because I want that prize. So it's a sign that it slowly will have an effect in the society. I think it's worth using some money to just give visibility to women in entrepreneurship. Yeah.
What do you think, Dr. Akbulut?
Well, yes, of course, the ultimate aim is to get rid of this price, right? But until then, I really second everything as well. We need that price for visibility. We need more and more women scientists. And as you are clear with the numbers, women are dropping out of academia after PhD. The numbers are terrifying, actually. So anything that we can do to promote women, I am in for it, but eventually, of course, we would like, once we have the 50-50, I think that is the point, that we are going to get rid of those special prizes and stuff.
What do you think, Dr. Palma?
Dr. Palma.
You are.
I like
You graduated in law.
Yeah,
And
I'm the only
mathematics.
one not PhD here, so, you know.
Still a doctor.
Yeah, still a doctor, yeah, still a doctor. I agree with Ozgë at all. I mean, it's a temporary step towards a situation when we hopefully don't need to talk about it anymore. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that we don't need to talk it right now. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I'm still shocked when I think that my grandma, she couldn't vote when she was young. I mean, 8 years ago, women couldn't vote. 200 years ago, they couldn't inherit anything, and they were considered almost property of a man. So don't take anything for granted. Don't take your rights for granted. I mean, we still have so much to do, I think, in terms of equal representation and equal... we formally have rights, but we technically don't have the same rights. So when we will be on the same field and we won't notice women in higher positions, we won't notice the head of the University of Padua is a woman now, where we won't have that conversation, that would be a good time to don't have this prize anymore.
Of course, yes, that's the ultimate goal, of course. And so just a last question. Before opening questions to the public, so get ready to ask some questions. What are the next steps of your research? Do you have another goal in mind, or do you just need to deepen the action you are doing today, Dr. Ginebra and Akbulut?
Yeah, we are, at the moment, we are working in a new application, which is based on the previous one. So we are developing 3D printed implants using the same material. So very often the defects that we have in the bone they can be quite big, and they have, let's say, complex shapes. So here we can use the additive manufacturing, so 3D printing technologies, and what we are involved now at present is developing a paste that can be injected, extruded, so we can obtain these customized, so personalized grafts to repair defects in the bone. So applying the 3D printing technologies using the basic material that we developed before.
Thank you. Dr. Akbulut?
Actually, what I am trying to make nowadays is we are applying for EU projects with our Italian partners, actually. And what we are trying to do is to really create a system with the synergy of material science and big data, and create a separate field that we would like to call surgical data science. And I think let me not give the details at the moment, but I will continue to work on accessibility and making it available for everyone.
Thank you very much. So I would like to ask the public, there are a lot of people, I don't know if you can see them on Zoom, maybe you do, or you
Somehow. And
them.
by the way, I would like to congratulate, of course, I congratulate your Euro Cup, but Italy has recently won the Euro Cup for volleyball in women.
So we won a lot of things recently. We've won a lot of things recently, we have to say. Yes. So, does any of you from the public here want to ask any questions? I think there are people willing to give you a microphone to talk. Okay, we have some questions.
I am curious about the biomaterials, the biomimetics used for bones, because you said before, if I understood well, that these biomaterials can be used to repair damages into the bones, and then the body is able to metabolize the biomaterials. So I was thinking, is it possible to say, is it right to say that these materials is like a stimulus you give to the bones to activate a series of mechanisms to repair itself, because after some time you will see it's not possible to find the biomimetic into the body, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it correct?
Yes, you are right. I mean, we use normally the term scaffold. A scaffold is, I don't know the Italian word for scaffold, is un andamio, well, a scaffold that, so it's a temporary structure that you use when you want to build a building. So the material has this function. We implant it, and the idea is that it gives, on one side, it gives a three-dimensional structure for the bone cells to colonize the scaffold and grow inside this structure. And also it gives the chemical signals for the cells to produce new bone. So this is it has this kind of role of stimulating the formation of new bone and being replaced because it enters this cycle of resorption and fabrication that's in our bones.
You can ask one more. Choose.
Oh, okay, if I have to choose, the question is, I was really interested in the fact that you can use this biomimetics also to create implant for dental implants. So I was thinking, because it's placed in a precise place, you don't have the problem, or do you have the problem of killing other bacteria that are really useful for our body? Because in the saliva, in the mouth, we have lots of bacteria. So.
Yeah. No, in this case, for instance, in the case of dental implants, the dental implants are like small screws that go inside the bone. They are not exposed to the oral cavity. So the idea is just to avoid pathogenic bacteria to make biofilms on the surface of the implant that is not in contact with the oral cavity, but it is inside the bone.
Does anyone else want to ask any questions? Also, if you want, I could translate in English if you needed it. Or maybe I will ask just... Oh, there's one. Okay.
I would like to thank you for being such an inspiration. And I would like to ask, did you have some impediments in your career for being a woman? And what can we do in our life to reach gender equality? Thank you.
Well, that's a very good question. I'll hear the answers carefully.
Yeah, I don't know, in my case, and I have the impression that there might be external, but I think that mostly, at least in my case, the drawbacks or the obstacles that I found were more internal, not external. I mean, women tend to be less self-confident, and I don't know if you have heard about the imposter syndrome. This idea that we are not good enough to do something. This is very typical from women. I have the experience of dealing with many students, which in my group, some of them are female, and we need to be very, very, very sure that something is perfect before trying to give a step forward. Men are are more self-confident, and this is something that I think we need to learn to combat. We need to fight this sentiment because it stops us for going. So in my case, at least, I found more these internal prejudices that are perhaps in the culture. I don't know if this is cultural, this is genetic, I don't know, but it's there. So it's good to know it and to know how to fight it. This is I don't know if Ozgë has different perspective.
Well, I have seen always support from men, but I agree with the internal interview. I mean, very nicely put. It's beautiful. Yes, these are the things that we go through, and at the same time, things are changing, and with the social media and such. And I think we should underline at that point is we see several sexual harassment cases and like several cases that the women are not promoted, although they deserve it better than men. And one thing that I frequently encounter is when we are picking a woman for a certain position, we want the woman to be perfect, great match, like overdoing everything and stuff. But then like the several positions are filled with mediocre men. So once the woman is okay, she's normal, then we have a tendency to evaluate her as if she's not good. So I think that is in terms of the evaluation, there is also this discrimination towards women. The expectations are set higher, and then the woman has to prove herself much better than a male colleague in order to say that I am doing good in job or to be accepted as on par. So I think that is something that we should be paying attention to, this equality in evaluation and how we are putting people into positions. I think by default, people are expecting less from men, and then once it is a woman, she has to do everything. So that is something that we have to be aware of. And at the same time, let's use social media and let's use our support networks in a much more delicate and stronger way in order to prevent any kind of impediments or like any kind of unfair stuff that is being thrown at us. So we are getting bigger and bigger, stronger and stronger. Let's use it.
Thank you, very good.
I would like to add something, just about the second part, not about my career, of course, because it's different. And you made me think of a joke, Ozgë, which is the difference between being assertive and being aggressive.
Yeah, exactly.
And they say, your gender, you know?
Yeah.
And it's the
I find
difference.
that to be very true.
It's a perception we have about women and men with the same qualities that become positive and negative compared to who possesses it. And to answer your question, I think that we talk about education and education in families, education of kids. So most of you are women here, or women, and you will probably be mothers, maybe, who knows. So the way you raise your kids and educate into diversity in general, which is not just about men and women, but appreciating different qualities and giving the same value to the quality in itself, not dependent on who possesses it, you know? So changing the vision on that and shaping the new generation, it takes time, but I think it starts at home.
And also maybe here. Thank you very much. You can also buy the book if you want to read it over there, just to support it, both in Italian and in English, if someone wants to read it in English as well. Thank you very much for being here, and have a good day. And if you want it to be signed by the author, she's here as well to do that. So.
Here to serve you.
Thank you.
Solo un'informazione di servizio, ricordo a tutti che gli appuntamenti di questo pomeriggio si svolgeranno al Teatro Verdi e nelle altre location, quindi qui al Molo Quarto ritorniamo domani mattina. Grazie, buon pranzo.